They thought I was just another quiet neighbor, a nobody. But when the HOA president tried to scam me out of my own land, I didn't just fight back. I exposed a criminal empire that went all the way to the city council. This isn't just a revenge story. This is how one Karen HOA messed with the wrong guy and lost everything. I moved into Clearview Estates to escape the noise of the city. I had just sold my tech startup and bought a peaceful lakefront property on the edge of a high-end gated community. The lake was beautiful, calm, and privateer, so I was told. My backyard opened directly onto the water, with a small dock perfect for morning coffee and evening reflection. But on the second week, I noticed something strange. A group of strangers were lounging on my dock. They acted like they owned the place. I politely walked out and said, "Excuse me, this is private property." One woman, wearing oversized sunglasses and a tennis skirt, didn't even look at me. She just smirked. "Oh honey," she said, "this is community access. The HOA owns the shoreline. You must be new here." She was Karen Winslow, the HOA president. That moment was the beginning of a war I never asked for. She told me the HOA had historical access to the lake and that my deed meant nothing. But I had a copy of the plat map and legal proof that the shoreline behind my house was mine, 100%. I even paid extra during escrow to ensure it. Still, over the next few days, more and more strangers used my dock. They picnicked, played music, and even littered. I installed a small sign, "Private property, no trespassing." Karen had it removed by the end of the day. When I confronted her at the next HOA meeting, she pretended to be calm and polite like I was just being dramatic. "I'm afraid you misunderstand the community bylaws," she said in that fake sweet voice. "We've always treated the lake as shared space." "But not when it's clearly owned by someone else," I replied, holding up my deed. That's when she changed tactics. She began fining me, $100 for unauthorized signage, $250 for restricting community access, even $500 for fencing without approval, though I hadn't built anything. She was fabricating violations to pressure me. It got worse. She told my landscaper to stop servicing my property, claiming I was suspended from community services. He quit. The garbage pickup skipped my house. A neighbor quietly told me Karen was trying to make an example of me. So I lawyered up. But my lawyer warned me, "She's smart. She's done this before. You're not just fighting a neighbor, you're up against a mini dictatorship." So I started digging. And what I found changed everything. After Karen's bogus fines and harassment didn't break me, she changed strategies. And this time, it wasn't just about control, it was about money. A few weeks after our last HOA meeting showdown, I noticed vans pulling into the neighborhood. They weren't delivery drivers or movers. These were tourists, literal tourists. Families unloading coolers, towels, kids with floaties, and cameras. At first, I thought it was some weird family reunion until I saw one of them holding up a flyer, "Clearview Lake Experience, $25 a day pass, private dock access, kayak rentals, fire pit lounge." And right on the flyer, a photo of my backyard. I was stunned. Karen had turned my private lakefront into a public attraction. She wasn't just letting residents use my property anymore, she was charging outsiders to access it. That's when I discovered Clearview Experiences LLC, a brand new business registered under her husband's name, a fake shell company funneling HOA traffic into a personal cash cow. My dock was now overrun every weekend. Kids were screaming, grills were smoking, someone even pitched a tent on the grass. My dog barked non-stop, my view of the peaceful lake, gone. And when I asked one tourist who gave them permission to be there, he said, "Karen gave us wristbands at the gate. She said this area is managed by the HOA." Enough was enough. I installed a camera facing the dock, then another facing the HOA clubhouse. And I started documenting everything: license plates, audio recordings, time-stamped video of Karen escorting people through the side gate. But retaliation came fast. The next morning, I woke up to yellow caution tape across my driveway. A citation was pinned to my door, "Unsafe structure," due to unpermitted landscaping near a water source. A total lie. But I was ready. I filed an injunction against the HOA through my attorney. We served them the same day Karen held a Clearview Summer Kickoff BBQ in my backyard. Literally, over 60 people had RSVP'd. They were setting up when the process server handed her the court order. Karen's smile dropped. She told everyone the event was cancelled due to weather concerns, but I wasn't done. That night, I went to the next board meeting not to argue, but to watch and record. Karen tried to keep the meeting private. She claimed legal matters exempted it from public attendance. But I quoted the state statute HOA board meetings involving community matters must be open unless discussing pending litigation, which they weren't. Reluctantly, they let me stay. And that's when I saw the rot. Karen was paying herself and 3 board members consulting fees from HOA funds, almost $75,000 in planning services, beautification oversight, and security analysis, all fake jobs, all signed off with each other's rubber stamps. And that wasn't all. I obtained a leaked email from a sympathetic neighbor on the board. Karen had plans to lease the land behind my home to her shell company for $1 a year under a loophole in the bylaws that classified shoreline property as shared green space. She wanted to legally strip me of my lake access. That was the moment I decided to go beyond fighting. I would expose her. To do it, I needed allies. I began talking to my neighbors, not all of whom were Karen loyalists. Many had suffered her abuse, unfair fines, revoked privileges, broken promises. One man said Karen fined him $300 for using the wrong mulch color. Another woman said her disabled son wasn't allowed to use the community pool due to insurance concerns. It was happening everywhere. So I did what Karen never expected. I created an anonymous website, clearviewtruth.com.it, had videos, leaked emails, quotes from other HOAs she had worked with, a downloadable PDF detailing all the shady payments, legal loopholes, and photos of paid tourists on my land. Within days, it went viral in the neighborhood, at least, and the cracks began to show. Karen called it slander and an attack on the community spirit. But people had seen the receipts. Residents started skipping dues. A motion was raised to audit the HOA's financials. A group of neighbors even held a Take Back Clearview picnicon, their own property, of course. But Karen, she wouldn't go quietly. She pulled her most brutal move yet. She accused me of environmental sabotage, claiming I had illegally drained part of the lake to prevent dock access, which, if proven, carried a hefty fine and possible legal action. Her evidence? A single aerial drone photo showing a receding shoreline. It would have been a problem if I hadn't already collected 3 months of lake level measurements, proving the drop was due to drought and evaporation, not sabotage. I handed over the data to the local water authority and made a public Facebook post titled, "The Real Reason Clearview Lake is Shrinking," with official charts, timestamps, and a photo of Karen blaming climate change just 6 months earlier. The community was boiling. Still, this was a war, and wars aren't won in one battle. With the neighborhood turning against her and my exposé gaining traction, Karen's grip on Clearview Estates began to loosen. But, like any seasoned manipulator, she wasn't going down without a fight. I knew there was something bigger she was hiding. The fines, the tourist scam, the forged bylaws, they were all breadcrumbs. I needed the loaf. Then it happened. One of the junior HOA board members, Ravi, reached out. Quiet guy. Young, nervous, but he'd seen enough. He asked to meet in private and made me promise I wouldn't say his name. "I shouldn't be showing you this," he said, sliding over a manila folder in a corner booth of the diner off Highway 12. Inside were printed email chains, engineering blueprints, and a scanned city grant application. I obtained a leaked email from a sympathetic neighbor on the board. Karen had plans to lease the land behind my home to her shell company for $1 a year, under a loophole in the bylaws that classified shoreline property as shared green space. She wanted to legally strip me of my lake access. That was the moment I decided to go beyond fighting. I would expose her. To do it, I needed allies. I began talking to my neighbors, not all of whom were Karen loyalists. Many had suffered her abuse, unfair fines, revoked privileges, broken promises. One man said Karen fined him $300 for using the wrong mulch color. Another woman said her disabled son wasn't allowed to use the community pool due to insurance concerns. It was happening everywhere. So I did what Karen never expected. I created an anonymous website, clearviewtruth.com. It had videos, leaked emails, quotes from other HOAs she had worked with, a downloadable PDF detailing all the shady payments, legal loopholes, and photos of paid tourists on my land. Within days, it went viral in the neighborhood, at least, and the cracks began to show. Karen called it slander and an attack on the community spirit. But people had seen the receipts. Residents started skipping dues. A motion was raised to audit the HOA's financials. A group of neighbors even held a Take Back Clearview picnic on their own property, of course. But Karen, she wouldn't go quietly. She pulled her most brutal move yet. She accused me of environmental sabotage, claiming I had illegally drained part of the lake to prevent dock access, which, if proven, carried a hefty fine and possible legal action. Her evidence? A single aerial drone photo showing a receding shoreline. It would have been a problem if I hadn't already collected 3 months of lake-level measurements proving the drop was due to drought and evaporation, not sabotage. I handed over the data to the local water authority and made a public Facebook post titled, "The Real Reason Clearview Lake is Shrinking," with official charts, timestamps, and a photo of Karen blaming climate change just 6 months earlier. The community was boiling. Still, this was a war, and wars aren't won in one battle. With the neighborhood turning against her and my exposé gaining traction, Karen's grip on Clearview Estates began to loosen. But like any seasoned manipulator, she wasn't going down without a fight. I knew there was something bigger she was hiding. The fines, the tourist scam, the forged bylaws, they were all breadcrumbs. I needed the loaf. Then it happened. One of the junior HOA board members, Ravi, reached out. Quiet guy, young, nervous, but he'd seen enough. He asked to meet in private and made me promise I wouldn't say his name. "I shouldn't be showing you this," he said, sliding over a manila folder in a corner booth of the diner off Highway 12. Inside were printed email chains, engineering blueprints, and a scanned city grant application. At the top of the file, Clearview Pedestrian Bridge Project, Phase 1 construction plan. It didn't make sense at first. A bridge? For what? We already had roads connecting the two sides of the lake, but as I dug in, it became clear. The HOA had applied for a $4 million infrastructure grant from the Citia grant meant for public parks, nature trails, and urban connectivity. But here's the thing, Clearview Estates is private property, gated, not eligible. So how'd they get the grant? Simple. Fraud. Karen submitted documents claiming the land was being turned over to the city as a shared public greenway, fake signatures, a bogus land deed. She even went as far as staging photos of neighborhood kids playing on what she called the future bridge site. I recognized one of the kids. His mum told me she was paid $100 and told it was for a newsletter. That bridge wasn't just a scam, it was a cover. The real plan? Karen was building a private entrance to the neighborhood from the other side of the lake through land that wasn't zoned for housing. Her husband had quietly purchased 5 acres near the projected bridge end under a shell company. The plan? Build 5 luxury homes and sell them at inflated prices, now with exclusive lake bridge access. She was literally expanding the HOA's borders using stolen city money. I felt sick. Ravi told me the first deposit of grant funds, $1.2 million, had already hit the HOA's account. The money was hidden under reserve landscaping projects, but it was being funneled to contractors connected to Karen's cousin, who ran a shady construction firm. It was deeper than I thought. This wasn't just Karen being petty, this was racketeering. That night, I added everything to the website. I created a new section, The Bridge to Corruption. The documents were there, the fake grant application, the blueprint, even a drone video showing early clearing work on the other side of the lake. It exploded. Local news picked it up. A reporter from Channel 9 reached out, and once the story hit the evening news, chaos erupted. Karen called an emergency board meeting, this time live-streamed, for transparency. She sat in the center, flanked by the remaining loyal board members. Her hair was perfectly styled, her voice calm until she looked into the camera. This is a targeted smear campaign by an individual who has repeatedly harassed this community. She was talking about me, directly. I assure you, she continued, that every action we've taken is legal, approved by the city, and in the best interest of Clearview. But her voice was shaky. Her hands clenched tighter the longer she spoke. Comments were flooding the stream. Explain the LLC then? What about the shell company? You said the land was public. We're gated. Her performance unraveled in real time. Then came the breaking point. During the Q&A, someone asked about the bridge contractor. Karen gave the name, Eagle Creek Design and Build. I had already posted the proof that Eagle Creek's business license was suspended 6 months ago. It was a shell entity. That clip of her lying live? It was all over social media within minutes. But the hammer really dropped when the city responded. The Department of Urban Development released an official statement. The Clearview Bridge Project grant was under emergency investigation for fraud, and pending revocation, they were freezing all funds and would be reviewing criminal conduct related to the falsification of land ownership. Boom. Clearview went into panic mode. Home values plummeted overnight. Realtors pulled listings. Buyers backed out. HOA emails were flying out every hour, promising restorative changes, but no one was buying it anymore. Karen? She doubled down again. She issued a new rule. All social media pages referencing the HOA were considered community attacks and subject to fines and legal action. I got a $2,500 fine by email, but I wasn't worried. Because the next day, I met with an investigative journalist from the Clearwater Times, who had received anonymous documents probably from Ravishowing that Karen had also misappropriated community security funds to install hidden microphones in the HOA clubhouse and meeting room. She had been spying on board members, recording conversations, blackmailing, controlling votes. Now it was bigger than a neighborhood scandal. Now we were talking federal wiretap violations. And suddenly, this wasn't just my war anymore. The FBI got involved. The day the FBI arrived, you could hear the silence fall over the entire community like a thick blanket. No dogs barking, no kids playing. Just the hum of 3 unmarked SUVs pulling into the Clearview Estates clubhouse lot. Karen wasn't prepared for it. The agents walked right past the security guard, past the newly installed keypad, funded by HOA emergency security funds, and went straight inside. They had a warrant, and they didn't need to knock. Within minutes, they carried out boxes of HOA documents, laptops, hard drive 7, the office safe. The neighborhood stood at a distance, phones in hand, filming the whole thing. Karen wasn't there yet. She had scheduled a community reunification brunch that morning in an effort to pivot public opinion, but she arrived 10 minutes late to a crime scene. She stepped out of her white Range Rover, heels clicking against the asphalt, and froze when she saw the federal agents walking out with her printer under their arms. I was there, standing across the street, holding my coffee, camera ready. When she saw me, her face twisted half fury, half disbelief, like she still couldn't believe someone like me had brought down someone like her. That afternoon, the HOA board held an emergency vote behind closed doors. 3 members resigned immediately. The others were too afraid. No one wanted their name tied to Karen anymore. She released a formal HOA statement that evening, claiming political persecution and deep fake evidence had caused a temporary misunderstanding. But the real community had already mobilized. With Ravi's help, we had formed a neighborhood alliance. Over 60 homeowners signed a petition to trigger a vote to dissolve the current HOA leadership, citing fraud, abuse of power, and negligence. And under state law, we had the right. Karen tried to block the vote. She called it invalid, said it was improperly formatted, and claimed it threatened HOA stability. But we knew the bylaws. Every move she made, we countered. Every fake rule she tried to enforce, we exposed with documents, recordings, and videos. Then came the town hall. It was packed. Every seat in the clubhouse was filled, standing room only. News cameras were there. A few city officials sat quietly in the back. And at the front, Karen. She looked different now, less polished, makeup cracking, her usual high-energy charm gone. You could see the pressure in her posture, the weight of losing control. I stood up to speak. "My name is Eric," I began. "You know me. I moved here for peace. I got war, but I didn't start it, Karen did." The crowd murmured. "I've been fined, harassed, lied to, trespassed upon, but I fought back, not with rumors, with receipts, with facts, with proof." Then I pointed to the screen behind me, where we displayed the shell companies tied to Karen's family, her fake consulting fees, the illegal grant application, her spy recordings, and the bridge plans. The room fell silent as one homeowner stood up. I second the motion to remove the president and the board. Then another, and another. It was happening in real time. Karen stood, voice shaking. "This is mob rule," she hissed. "You people don't understand how hoes work. You think this is a game, but—" "You think this is your kingdom," I said, cutting her off. That got applause. When the vote was cast on paper, for legal accuracy, the results were stunning. 86% in favor of full board removal. Karen lost everything, but that didn't stop the consequences from escalating. 3 weeks later, she was arrested not for HOA abuse, yet, but for wire fraud and misuse of federal funds. The bridge project triggered a full audit of all city grants going back 3 years. Turns out Karen had done this before twice at her last 2 HOAs. She had just never encountered someone willing to fight, and now, on it, hours of internal HOA recordings she had kept. Not just spying on board members, but on neighbors, private conversations, recordings of her mocking disabled kids, racist rants, threats. We handed it over to authorities, and when the media leaked parts of it, Karen's reputation wasn't just ruined, it was incinerated. The HOA dissolved temporarily under state supervision. An interim committee was formed. I wasn't part of it, I didn't want power, I just wanted peace. And honestly, after everything, I was exhausted. But then, something unexpected happened. I received a handwritten note in my mailbox. No signature, just one line. "Thank you for giving us our neighborhood back." It was enough. Months passed. Clearview Estates began to feel like a neighborhood again. The air felt lighter. Kids played without being shushed. People waved again instead of whispering. It was as if a dark fog had lifted done that most residents hadn't even realized they were living under. Karen was gone. Officially, she was awaiting trial on federal charges related to fraud, wiretapping, and misappropriation of public funds. Unofficially, she was a punchline. Neighborhood moms made memes. Teens reenacted her HOA meetings for TikTok. Someone even made a Karen piñata at the summer block party. I didn't attend that one. It felt a little cruel. And after everything, I wasn't bitter. I was just tired. But Karen's shadow hadn't vanished completely. The interim committee was still finding things ghost expenses, falsified maintenance records, even a secret PayPal account, labeled Emergency Flowers Fund. She had reimbursed herself over $8,000 for decorations that never existed. But one discovery stood out. Buried in the digital records, someone found an unprocessed violation notice, addressed to me. The timestamp? 2 days after the FBI raid. It was never sent. The violation? Unkempt emotional energy, disrupting HOA harmony. The fine? $3,000. I laughed when I read it. It was Karen's final fine. Her last little act of petty tyranny, filed like a royal decree on her way out of the collapsing castle. I printed it and framed it. It now hangs in my office, a reminder that people like her can have power but only if we let them. The new Hoano, just a volunteer neighborhood committee, functioned like it should have all along. No fines, no politics, just people helping each other cut grass, organize trash days, and plan potlucks. I finally rebuilt my dock. But this time, it wasn't a personal dock. We built a shared community lakefront, open to actual residents. No wristbands, no paid tours, no fake BBQs, just chairs, kayaks, and the sound of peace. The HOA even voted to name it Karen's Folly as a joke, but we settled on Clearview Point instead. One evening, I sat out there as the sun set, sipping coffee, my dog by my side. Peace. Real peace. Then, A neighbor sat next to me, one I hadn't spoken to much before. Retired Navy guy. Quiet, stern. "You did something important," he said. I shrugged. "Just didn't let a bully win." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but most people don't even try." We sat in silence after that, just listening to the lake. Then, something strange happened. I got a letter. No return address, handwritten again. This time, not anonymous. It was from Karen, from jail. "You think you won, but I built something real. I gave that community structure, pride. Without me, they'll turn on each other again. Just wait. And you? You're no hero. You're just a bored man with too much time and not enough spine to lead. You exposed me, but you didn't fix anything. That's the difference between us. Enjoy your little dock. I hope the water rises." No apology, no reflection, just venom and ego, even behind bars. I laughed. Then I put the letter next to the violation notice on my wall. She was wrong. I hadn't just exposed her. I had empowered the neighborhood to protect itself. People had found their voices. We no longer whispered about injustice, we shouted it. And more importantly, we acted on it. Karen lost her crown, her power, her empire of HOA lies. But we gained something better. Freedom. And that's the true ending. Not a courtroom verdict, not a viral video, not a punchline, but the quiet, powerful feeling of getting your home back. And every time I sit on that dock, I remember the chaos, the war, the absurdity, and I smile. Because even now, somewhere in a prison cell, Karen is probably still trying to find someone for breathing wrong. But not here. Not in my neighborhood. Not ever again.